Welcome back, everybody, to the Blazer Victory Podcast. This is John Duncan, and I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Darian Smith. And guys, it feels like forever, but it is finally game week as our UAB Blazers take on the Alabama A&M Bulldogs Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central Time at Protective Stadium. Darian, are you ready, man? Because I'm ready to kick it off now. I wish the game was tonight.
I've been bragging about this team. You've been bragging about this team. So I'm just excited for the guys to really go out there and show how much they've been working, because we both been seeing it. And I'm like really, really, really happy for Brian Vincent, man. I know he's had a very successful career here at UAB, but I know he has come under question sometimes for certain play calls or whatever. But now he gets to run the show how he wants to run it. So now we get to truly see what he's about, and just seeing him as a man and as a person, just in person, just watching him work with the kids, it's been impressive. So you can't help but root for him.
Yes.
So I'm excited for him just as much as I'm excited for the guys.
I completely agree, Darren. I think that he's ready to prove that, and he's proven to us, but get to prove to the whole world that, hey, let's take that interim label off and just make him the permanent coach. Because I'm telling you, he's got the guys dialed in. We've talked about it in length on prior episodes. Like, I'm just so ready for everybody to see this football team under Brian Vincent. But let's go ahead and just get into some business before we start our preview, guys. Number one, if you want to support the show, definitely go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, or follow button on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Definitely on that platform, hit the follow or subscribe button to make sure you do not miss any future Blazer Victory podcast episodes. And also, you can also support the show by buying a t-shirt or a hoodie, and you can do that by going to storefrontier.com/blazerpod. Again, that's storefrontier.com/blazerpod, and help support us. And also, if you've missed prior episodes, go back. We just dropped a great interview that I had with head coach Brian Vincent on Friday morning. And also, we've done offense, defense, and special teams preview shows.
Special team guys, we got you. We did the episode. You are special to us too.
Yes, we got all we got everybody covered. But definitely, if you missed those, go ahead and give those a listen before Thursday night. Of course, after you give this a listen, and after Darian and I give you just a couple minutes talking about Alabama A&M, we are going to roll our interview that we had with BJ Jones. Again, BJ, thank you so much for just coming on the show. This guy, he is my go-to guy for anything HBCU. He covers not just Alabama A&M. We're talking SWAC, MEAC, all HBCU, and not even just HBCU. He has such a great football knowledge, and he tells us in the interview, he's been involved with football since, I think, what he said was 5 years old.
Since he was 5 as a coach or a player.
Man, so that knowledge that he has, definitely, I can't wait to roll that interview that we had with him. But again, you can follow him on Twitter at Inside HBCU Football. So give him a follow.
And I also just wanted to say, I think what BJ is doing is important because of it is needed parity that we need in college. They try to market everything to send them to these Power 5 schools, and it's like even certain Power 5 schools, we all know who they are. They try to get all the biggest players. It's a money machine. You see how much they spend on these facilities and everything. And before I go on a rant like that, I just want to say thank you to BJ for doing what he does, because I see his efforts paying off, and I see more parity and guys going to places that they should just want to go to. HBCU, Group of 5, NAIA, it doesn't matter. If you're a good player, you can shine at any school. So thank you, BJ, for it's an important need that you're feeling, and you help put a light on Alabama A&M and all HBCU schools. So thank you. We appreciate that.
Definitely agree. Well, Darian, let's just kind of talk about Alabama A&M in general. This is head coach Connell Maynard. He's been 11 years as a coach, but he's been at Alabama A&M since the 2018 season. Now, UAB folks, we played Alabama A&M in the return game to kick off the 2017 season. That was not Coach Maynard. Maynard came the year after that. but he's been successful everywhere he's been. He's 83-41 overall. I mean, he's 18-10, has an 18-10 overall record at A&M, and he's been 12-5 in the SWAC. They won the spring 2021 season they won the SWAC championship. I mean, when you look at that, though, it seems a lot of that was because of Akil Glass. And, that's kind of what BJ talks with us about in the interview. Like, I didn't even realize that Akil Glass has been there since Mainer's been there. Like, so this is Mainer's first, this is Mainer's first time at Alabama A&M having a quarterback not named Akil Glass. So, I mean, they've got a couple other playmakers on this team, but I don't know what to expect of this Alabama A&M. I kind of see, last year they had a decent year. They didn't win the SWAC again like they did in the spring, but I mean, I just don't know what to expect of this A&M team. I think they'll be middle of the pack, maybe towards the top of the SWAC, but I don't know, Darren. Do you have any just general thoughts on this Alabama A&M team, or is it kind of just what I stated? Like,
it's a lot of what you stated, because it's hard losing that commander, and this is like a 5-star ranked commander for A&M, because he's been there so long. He's been the guy that's been attached to Coach Mainer's hip this whole time. So yes, it's good to return offensive linemen and weapons on the outside, but all of that stuff can break down if you don't have that guy. So he was such a it's like having a shot blocker in basketball. If you have some wing defenders on the perimeter, they can get blown past. You can have a shot blocker to cover up for all your mistakes. That's a quarterback, a great quarterback. A la Malik Willis, what he did to us, as I flash back to that last year. They cover up so much, like they cover up so many weaknesses because of the command on the offense, and then just the special throws and the audibles and everything. Now you replace it with a guy that has to learn. So all of a sudden you take your biggest strength, and that could go from positive to negative. I'm not saying whoever they put there is going to be a negative, but I know they won't be him.
No, yeah.
They won't be him. So, and then you take that and you put them against we've talked about this UAB defense. So it's going to be, it can be, I don't know, man. I'm not saying what's going to happen, but if I was a betting man, I would say that that's going to be a lot for whoever the quarterback is to overcome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if folks that don't know about Akil Glass, I mean, this was a guy that threw for over 3,500 yards and 36 touchdowns. I mean, this is a playmaker that they lose. And everything coming out of the Alabama A&M camp, and BJ talks about it too in our interview, it's going to be between two guys. It's going to be between redshirt freshman Quincy Casey, a quarterback that transfer coming over from Jackson State, or it'll be junior Xavier Langford, who just threw the ball 7 times last year. I mean, so it's total inexperience, and then you're coming into Protective Stadium and an FBS environment. Like, I mean, I know Alabama A&M plays in some big games, Magic City Classic, of course, but when you're going up against that UAB defense, I mean, I agree with you, Darren. And, we'll get into our official prediction in a couple minutes, but yeah, I just don't see it turning out well for the Bulldogs.
And just watching and doing some research, I saw where he went over their first scrimmage. So I was able to see UAB's first scrimmage. And then hearing Coach Maynard talk about A&M's first scrimmage this year. And he talked about how the quarterback made some boneheaded plays. It was a lot of mistakes. It was a lot of flags. He's looking for consistency. He was kind of disappointed and saying they were going to clean it up versus you. When I looked at our team, I bragged about it a lot. Like I said, the first scrimmage, there was hardly any penalties. Everybody was lined up in the right spots, and there was hardly any mistakes. A veteran-led team, sound, disciplined. That's what I saw. So in totality, when I compared the two, I'm like, this could be ugly, because as the Bulldogs, you need to do whatever you can to minimize those mistakes, because you're gonna have to capitalize wherever you can, right? If you get into a 2nd and 5 and you get a holding call, offsides against this defense, this fast secondary. You get sick now. Now you put yourself behind the chains. With the inexperienced quarterback, I just don't see it happening there. So I'm gonna be looking out for that.
Definitely. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, there are two guys that I did want to spotlight for the Alabama A&M offense, and one of those is a very talented wide receiver, Abdul Ibrahim. I mean, this is a guy, he had 67 catches last year for over 1,000 yards. I mean, in one game against Texas Southern, he had eight receptions for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. So very, very talented receiver Ibrahim is. But, hey, you don't have Akil Class throwing you the ball anymore, so I don't know if he'll get that many. I mean, he'll probably get a couple, but, I mean, I expect our defense just to lock him down. I mean, really, him. And then the running back, Gary Quarles, he had almost 900 yards rushing last year and 10 touchdowns. Really, those two guys are the two to watch for, and whoever they decide to put in there at quarterback. And honestly, we'll probably see both of them. We'll probably see Casey and Langford. But I definitely just wanted to spotlight Ibrahim and Gary Quarles for the offensive side of the ball for Alabama A&M. Now, Darian, on the defensive side of the ball for Alabama A&M.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
You guys want to talk about a train wreck? I mean, this defense was – I mean, there was probably some JUCO defenses that were a lot better than this defense. Like, this defense was so bad last year. Like, they gave up over 35 points per game, over 400 yards. I mean, this defense was just that bad last year. And it shows. I mean, hey, Maynard went in and kind of cleaned house, got rid of the defensive coordinator, brought a new guy in, brought a bunch of transfers. I think that he was quoted at SWAC Media Days saying that he was going to have 10 or 11 new starters on defense from the transfer portal. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, it can't get any worse, but honestly, when you bring in that many new guys and
that's tough.
And your first game is at UAB, a powerhouse, like good luck, man. Debo's back there licking his chops.
Man, listen. And as far as like Ibrahim, the receiver, I mean, I'll take my chances with Mac McWilliams and Starlin Thomas and all those guys, Grayson Cash and
all day.
So yeah, I'm taking my chances. But as far as their defense, man, so I think in totality they signed probably 38 guys and like had 26 or 28 transfers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of turnover. And they have a new defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken.
They do, yeah. The old guy, or the old defensive coordinator, is actually a defensive coordinator at Hoover High School now. So yeah, they do bring a new guy in. Yeah.
So like you're literally replacing everything. Have you ever been at a job and somebody said, "Hey, all of y'all in this unit, whatever you're working at, all of y'all fired"? Like they just fire all the forklift drivers or something.
Clean
nobody,
house, yeah.
But nobody actually does that in real life because it's so hard. You need at least some kind of holdovers. I'm pretty sure they have 1 or 2 holdovers, but I mean, I don't know, man. You're facing a extremely talented offensive line. You're facing a guy that can be a potentially first round running back with like 4 other running backs behind him.
Right.
You're facing one of the elite CUSA receivers in Trey Shropshire with a lot of talent at receiver that we know to be that's ready to step up. And you have 2 good quarterbacks and experienced quarterbacks, and then Dylan Hopkins coming back ready to sling it with his 100% healthy finally. I don't know, man. If these guys if these guys can't stop us from scoring and they have to air it out with an inexperienced quarterback against our secondary and let our D-line tee off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get in those predictions before we roll the interview with BJ. Darian, I've got it 45-7. I mean, I don't see where UAB doesn't blow this team out. Like this is no disrespect to Alabama A&M, but when you have to replace your best quarterback, like he's not back, and then you replace everybody on your defense, like it's just I don't see how this doesn't get ugly. Like, if this game is close at all, I'm gonna be a little disappointed. Of course, I would, anytime you get a W and win by, as long as you win by 1 point, whatever, you still get a W. But I will be disappointed if this isn't a blowout. Like, I just don't see how A&M keeps it respective. What's your thoughts?
Okay, I give two scenarios. I say probably the worst scenario is their offense is still prolific since they got some guys coming in, and we don't know how the quarterback is, but he's like the second coming of a kill glass, and we get into some form of a shootout. I don't see how that happens. That's if they get their running game going. And our D line isn't. We lost too much or something. So in that scenario, I see it being 48-31 Blazers. Like, that is highly unlikely. The scenario I really see is probably more around 52-14.
Yeah.
Because I say that because, like I said, I think we should be able to score on these guys. And if we score on them and they have to try to play catch up, if we get up 21-0 in the first quarter, and they try to air it out, I think they have to keep the run game. They have to keep us honest, because if they don't, I think they play into our strengths. And I think our secondary and our speed is our strength. So now you get pick sixes and turnovers and fumbles and negative plays and block punts, Grayson Cash doing Grayson Cash things,
Right.
So I kind of see that, and this, like I said, that's no disrespect, but I can just see it getting ugly like that. But now, if they can get their running game going against our D line, and if Casey Glass if he doesn't make any mistakes and they keep it simplified for him, I see a way that they can kind of stay in it into the fourth quarter.
Got you. Well, all right, guys. Well, without further ado, I will go ahead and roll our interview that we had with BJ. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Blazer Victory podcast, where we are pleased to be joined by BJ Jones, who is a writer and contributor for HBCU Gameday, and also hosts a show every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, called Inside HBCU Football. And again, that's on Sunday nights. And you can watch that via the Black College Sports Network on Facebook and on YouTube. And also give our man BJ a follow on Twitter at Inside HBCU Fball. And BJ, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good.
Good, man. Well, it's great to have you on. Me and you've been friends for a long time now. Great to finally have you on the show, and it's great to be talking college football, man. We had week 0. We had a couple HBCU games to watch. Got to see Alabama State beat Howard. But you got to get us kind of caught up on this Alabama A&M squad, because, being honest, like Darian and I, we've done some research on the team, but there's just not a lot of information out there. So I guess the first question that I want to ask you, BJ, is just what should we expect out of this Alabama A&M 2022 squad?
I'm gonna be honest with you. No one knows. No. This is why I say that. Alabama A&M went out and signed 26 transfers. Mm-hmm. Most of them on the defensive side of football, and that's because Alabama A&M has had one of the most prolific offenses, not only in the SWAC, but in FCS football, period, with Aqeel Glass and those weapons that he's had, Fatah Ibrahim, Brian Jenkins Jr., and the likes. The problem with Alabama A&M is defensively, they were one of the worst teams in the country and have been, for a few years. So what Coach Cornell Mann and his staff, what they went out and did is, he said, we went out and we scratched where it itched. Most of the guys they brought in on the defensive side of the football, they went really heavy in the secondary and on the defensive line. And so we don't know what to make of them. Aqeel Glass is gone. He's a starter there. And since Cornell Maynard, head coach at Alabama A&M, his quarterback has been Aqeel Glass. They have been joined at the hip. So this is the first time since he's been the head man there that he's breaking in a new quarterback
Okay. Well,
Transfer from Jackson State.
and I was just about to ask you. So, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think it's going to be Quincy Casey from Jackson State, or do you think it's going to be the junior Xavier Langford? Like, I mean, he he threw it 7 times last year. So, is it just going to be kind of?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Quincy Casey.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Quincy Casey. He has command of that playbook. The boss from campus is, he's been kind of leading the pack per se, and so it looks like it's going to be Quincy Casey. Wouldn't be shocked to see the junior quarterback as well.
Hey, BJ. So first of all, I want to say I appreciate you for everything, for covering HBCU sports. It's big for the culture, So big shouts out to you for that. First of all, that's important. But Quincy Casey, what type of quarterback is he? Is he a dual threat? Do you know?
Well, Quincy Casey is a guy, he can move around a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily call him dual threat, but he has some escapability. He can do some things with his feet. He can air it out now. Quincy Casey has an arm. He's a 3-star quarterback coming out of Memphis. He was recruited by a bunch of larger schools. He was recruited by, some Conference USA and some Sun Belt schools. So he's a guy that was highly regarded coming out of Memphis a few years ago. And he was a guy that put up some numbers against this Alabama A&M football team. Well, not this football team, but against Alabama A&M in the spring of 2020 when they played. He threw for almost 400 yards against Alabama A&M. So he's a guy with a lot of talent, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he looks now that he's getting a shot to be a starter.
Okay. And one more question for that offense. We all know about Aqeel Glass and all the video game numbers he put up. What about that offensive line? Do they return a lot of the same guys that helped that prolific offense be so impactful last year?
Yes, a lot of those guys up front are returning. They're returning most of their pieces. The offensive line, those receivers are returning. They're going to be missing Zay Moore, who was a big-time receiver, 1,000-yard guy. Fatah Ibrahim is back, 2-time All-American. He's back. You got Brian Jenkins, who will also be back. Gary Qualls, running back, he's back. So a lot of pieces from that offense will be back this year.
Okay. Well, BJ, you mentioned the transfers, and I mean, it really does seem, on the defensive side, but it really does seem that Coach Maynard kind of has gone almost all in on the transfer portal. Is it like, did he come in the last couple of years and just say, hey, we need to go all in on the portal? Was that just a lack of talent, or was just the defense so bad just altogether he really had no choice? He just had to go, all in and bring some guys in.
Yeah, he had to go all in. Alabama A&M, since Connell Maynard has been there, has lacked defensively. Like I said, the problem with Alabama A&M is they can score on anybody. Right. The problem is anybody can score on them. And when I say anybody can score on them, you had teams in the conference with offenses that were bad that were in shootouts with Alabama A&M. Wow. So he had to go and address those needs. And one of the things that he talked about at Swag Media Days, this hasn't been a tough football team. Not on a defensive standpoint, not from a defensive standpoint. They haven't been tough. So he had to go and get some guys with that mentality. And when you see the way that everyone else is recruiting across the conference, people are always going to talk about Jackson State, but everyone else has stepped up their recruiting. So you couldn't more of the same because you'll get left behind.
Gotcha. And I mean, kind of my next question though was with all these transfers, I mean, the defense has to be better, right? I mean, could it get any worse, to be honest? Like, could it get any worse than it was last year?
No, couldn't get any worse. And they also made they made a key change. Kenneth Boulware is now the defensive coordinator, who was Connell Maynard's defensive coordinator when he was at Winston-Salem State. When he was at Winston-Salem State, they won 14 games, went to the Division II National Championship game, finished a few years ranked in the top 3 in Division II. So it's he's going back to what he's familiar with, You might not see them air it out as much as they did with Aquil Glass. You'll probably see more of what his offenses look like at Winston-Salem State, where they're going to play defense. They're going to throw the ball a little bit to keep you honest, but they're going to run it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and kind of too, until you get those quarterback, whoever's replacing Glass, until you get him comfortable, you really can't sit there and, air it all out like they have been these last few years. As you mentioned earlier, since Maynard's been there at A&M since 2018. So I guess another thing I wanted to kind of pick your brain on, BJ, is that so Alabama A&M is a team that hasn't faced an FBS team since 2018, since his first year at Alabama A&M when they lost at Cincinnati. Was there like a scheduling philosophy where they didn't want to schedule an FBS team for a couple years? Because now you look, and this year they begin the year with 2 FBS teams. You got to go to UAB, then the very next week you got to go to Troy. Like, do you know anything behind that scheduling philosophy that, hey, we're not going to play one for a couple years, and now all of a sudden we're going to schedule 2 in a year? And I get the whole COVID, what happened in 2020. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had to scrap that. But do you have any inside info on maybe why the scheduling philosophy is the way it is for A&M?
I think Alabama A&M is in a good position. Alabama A&M is in the same position as Jackson State, Southern, where Alabama A&M plays in the Magic City Classic, makes a lot of money from that. There's a few teams in the conference, and particularly in the SWAC, where they make enough money off their ticket sales where they don't have to go out and get revenue. The program that I played at, Southern, is one of them. We almost average 20,000 people per home game. So we don't have to go out and schedule an FBS. And then the Bayou Classic, you're going to get 65,000 plus, and that's almost $1 million payout. So we don't have to go out annually and play those FBS games like so many others in the FCS have to do.
That's a good point. I was wondering, like, with Deion and with everything that was going on at Jackson State, that has taken center stage nationally. I was wondering, do you see this kind of being not a trickle down effect, but just kind of going around to every HBCU school? Do you see the level of play stepping up? I know you kind of alluded to it earlier. Do you see that happening all around? What will it take for HBCU schools to take that next step?
I think we're in the midst of it right now. I think Deion Sanders came at it's almost a perfect storm. You had the summer of unrest, everything that happened with George Floyd, which that has increased enrollment at pretty much every HBCU since then. Just that civil unrest, we're dealing with record attendance numbers from a student standpoint. I know that at Southern, our student population is up significantly. We just welcomed the largest freshman class in school history, and that's across the board at HBCUs. And I think, with that happening, then with Deion, and then with now you're starting to see celebrities kind of come in and almost adopting an HBCU, whether it's LeBron and FAMU, Luke and FAMU, just so much going on. I think HBCUs are hot right now, and that's trickling into the football field as well. Where now you're seeing those 3-stars and 4-stars, 5-stars. You're seeing those guys take a look at HBCUs right off the rip. And one of the things that I know that we always say, if we can get you to homecoming on a recruiting trip, or at Southern, we can get you to one of the big games, it's a wrap.
Right.
It's a wrap. You're not saying no. And yeah, so I think right now you're really seeing a renaissance, and you're starting to see their kids now that are in that ESPN 300 that are taking legitimate shots, that are taking legitimate looks. And then their parents are calling around to people like me and people that have been around, kicking the tires on HBCUs. And that's something that didn't happen 4 or 5 years ago.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
And that's great. And I'm glad you brought that up, BJ, too. Like, from the if you're looking at college football as a whole, like, the attention that Deion Sanders has brought not only to Jackson State, but just to HBCUs, as a whole. But like you just mentioned, it's not just Deion. You've got Florida A&M competing with North Carolina. We saw this, yesterday on Saturday, and you've got all these highly talented, prospects that they are taking visits to these HBCU campuses, and they're falling in love. They're committing to these schools, and it's, with the whole NIL transfer portal, of course. But I mean, it's really great to see, these HBCUs almost, coming together, and like they're all on fire right now, which is great to see, for college football as a whole, because we all know at the top, how it seems to be trending towards just being two really big conferences and then really almost everybody else. But it's great to see, the HBCUs kind of coming together right now. And as I say that, I was going to ask you, how does the rest of just the SWAC feel about Deion Sanders? Like, how do you think Coach Maynard feels about Sanders? Do they hate it? Do they hate his guts? Like, can they not stand him? Or do you really think that maybe they get along behind the scenes? Or I'm just curious.
Okay, so that last year, there was some significant trash talk between Deion Sanders and Cornell Maynard. During the spring, Cornell Maynard said, they've had some back and forth. One of the interviewers asked, what was his tips that he would give Deion. He said, I'm not giving him any tips. He's the enemy. And after he beat him, he said, after Cornell Maynard beat him in the spring, he said, tell him to go get more 4 and 5 stars. He made that comment. Yeah, made his comment back. And then, Cornell Maynard told him, hey, if you think that I'm going to roll out here with the same team I have this spring and the fall, I'm going to go get more guys too. And, Cornell Maynard made the comment, everyone likes their team at the beginning of the year, which led Jackson State to playing Alabama. Jackson State actually went to Alabama A&M last year on Alabama A&M's homecoming, sellout crowd, and beat them 65-14, which is their worst. And then Cornell Maynard, as we know, Deion Sanders had surgery last year. He had a serious situation. He was on a scooter. And Cornell Maynard asked him about Aflac sending him a scooter. So Deion actually brought a pink scooter and set of Alabama A&M's field and signed it after the game. So these have been going back and forth. It reminds you of Steve Spurrier and Phil Fulmer back in the day. It's one of those things where these two they go back and forth, and amongst the conference, a lot of I like what he's done, but Deion Sanders has become a proxy for HBCU. Saying this too. No, there's been great coaches in this league. There's been great coaches here. It doesn't start with me. So he's doing a good job of deflecting it. But trust me, everybody wants to beat them. Like, they have a huge, huge target on their back.
But that's so beautiful to hear. I'm from Mississippi. Both of my parents graduated from Jackson State. I know all about the HBCU culture, and it's beautiful to hear that the spotlight is being shined, and recruits are taking it serious. National media are taking HBCU serious, because as a Black man, I understand how important it is, So props to you guys, and props to you, BJ, for continuing help shining this light on HBCU schools.
Oh man, no problem, man. Like I said, man, it's my passion, man. I'm a SWAC lifer. I said my dad played in the conference. I played at Alabama State. My mom is from Alabama A&M. And have an aunt that marched in the band at Alabama State. My family's split down the middle, Alabama A&M and Alabama State. I made the decision to go to Southern, so I've seen this thing from a kid to a player, now a graduate, now covering it. I'm an HBCU lifer, so man, to see everything, this uptick in all this positiveness around HBCUs, man, it's a beautiful thing to me, because I gotta tell people, man, I got sweat equity in the business. I got blood and sweat equity in the business.
Right.
I love it. Now, hey, before we let you go, BJ, for those that don't know, before you went to Southern, now you played a year at UAB under Watson Brown. Is that not true?
Correct.
All right, man. Well, we got to talk. We got to talk just a few minutes about this. Now, are you a little jealous to see all these facilities that they have now over there at UAB compared to what you had?
He loved poking his sore spot. Like, he loves poking this spot here, man.
Look, UAB is night and day I mean, the HUC is not there anymore. They don't even have a classroom building anymore. Kids have no
Yeah.
idea what the class building is. But I remember those small football offices that we had, man. Man, the days of Watson Brown and Tuffy Crow and man,
Mm-hmm.
Guy rest his soul, man, with Coach Sullivan, man, and I
Yes.
mean, I just remember, man, that man, we were all that we had, and the most beautiful thing about UAB, spent the year there, man, which was a red shirt year for me, so I didn't actually get any, field time. But the most beautiful thing about it is, even though I only spent the year there, um, the guys, man, football U, man, they reach out. I've played in the alumni flag football game. I always come out to support the Blazers. My dad is still a basketball season ticket holder. I love going to the games, man. It's just I love UAB and what it does for the city and what they do for the city of Birmingham. And UAB is a special place, man. But it is amazing to see, the facilities that they have now. They're not going to Bell Gym and lift anymore. They're not going to Bell
No,
Gym.
no, no.
They're not having to get dressed at Bartow, our locker rooms down there, and then walk across the practice
Mm.
like we used to back in the day, man. It just, man, it's amazing to see where the program has come from, and I know what the program was up against because there were serious talks when I was there about the board of trustees really trying to get rid of the program, and to see where the program has come from, and Coach Clark, man, I think the world of him. Amazing guy and what he's been able to do for the program, man, it's amazing, man. I mean, I'm talking about it is amazing.
I'm glad that you still bleed that green and gold at the same time. And my wife, we both went to, of course, I went to UAB, but my wife was a mascot here, and she got a master's at A&M, so we got some sweat equity in with A&M too. And man, it's beautiful to see that. I try to stress to people all the time is the continued brotherhood after football. That
Mm-hmm.
is the most important part. There's so many guys that I didn't play with that I can call upon for help, all because we created this football family atmosphere, right? So I'm so happy. Hopefully we can get you on another time, sometime this season, man. I enjoy talking to you and just getting this insight. You got a lot of knowledge on the game, man.
Man, look, I've been doing this for a long time, man. I tell anybody, I've been either as a player or coach. I've been in football every year of my life since I was 5 years old.
Mm.
And one thing I can say about UAB, man, those guys have made sure whether it's it's Darryl Hackney, Marcus Elliott, you name them, Stan Kendrick, you name them. And they let me know, man, you still football you. They don't. I know you went off, you went somewhere else, man. You still football you. So man, I'm still in the alumni groups on Facebook, man, and I have a great relationship with those guys that I played with there, and man, we go out, man. I went to the return, and man, anytime I get an opportunity to support the Blazers, man, I do because if it wasn't for Tuffy Crow, quick story, man. I remember coming out of high school, and originally I'm about to go to UNA, and met Tuffy Crow, and he was recruiting me, and uh, he said that I think you can play. I said, you think I can play the Division 1 level? He said, well, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm not here because I think you'd be a good player for UNA. I'll tell you that. And
Mm.
that was it. And talking to him and talking to John Cook and some of the other guys, Corn Dog there from out of Homewood, man, talking about, hey man, let's stay home and we can build this into something special. And we didn't do it. We laid some bricks down, but to see that something special
Exactly.
that we out
Exactly.
to see it, oh man, it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. Well, BJ, we appreciate you. Darian, I appreciate you so much just for taking time out of your day to come on the Blazer Victory podcast and talk some, A&M football, HBCU football in your days at UAB. We greatly appreciate you. And guys, if you're listening and you're not following BJ on Twitter, definitely go ahead and give him a follow at Inside HBCU F-Ball. And also, as I mentioned earlier, give his Sunday night HBCU football show a watch. You can get to that on Facebook or on YouTube. Black College Sports Network. But BJ, thank you so much for coming on with us.
All right, man.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, fellas. I appreciate y'all, man.
All right, guys, and don't forget that late Thursday night, probably Friday, early in the morning, you're going to get our instant reaction episode to the UAB Alabama A&M game. But as always, go Blazers. And Darren, you want to close us out, buddy?
Y'all know Blazer Nation. Let's ride.